So today I'm doing the first brush on coat. Okay, so we're doing a brush on mold for Starscream so that we can do a junk cast and start making this into an actual prosthetic mask. We're going to be using Rebound 25. It's just a 2-part brush on silicone from Smooth On. I've already put mold release on this guy. This stuff is just a 1-to-1 mix. So we're just gonna mix up a little bit, just enough to brush on. We don't need to mix a lot. We're gonna do the first coat, and then we're gonna let it sit for about an hour, and then come back and do another coat, and then let that sit for an hour, and then do a third coat. And 3 should be plenty for what we're doing. We're probably only ever gonna use this mold once or twice anyway. Hopefully once if everything goes to plan. Just gonna start out with a little bit. The first coat, I'm gonna just do straight up normal color. And then I have some Silk Pig pigments that I'm gonna dye tint the subsequent layers. And the reason for that is it kind of gives you a better view of how much you've already covered and how much you haven't as you're putting on the layers, because it's kind of hard to see if you have all your layers the exact same color, whether or not you've actually gotten good coverage on your secondary and future layers. So I'm just mixing a little bit. This is going to be just the base coat, so I don't want to use too much because I don't want to waste any. I just have a little trial kit, which should be more than enough to do a mask like this. Once we're done putting on all the layers of the silicone, then the next step after that is to make a hard shell around it to hold it in place. Or use Plastipaste 2 for that. That'll be later on though. That's pretty good and mixed up. And now comes the fun part of getting this on everywhere. I'm gonna just go in here and get it in all the recesses and stuff first. You can see this is much thicker than a more traditional like rubber that you would pour in a mold, and that's because it's a brush on, right in the name. That's because you want it to be thick to stick to the side of your parts and things, since usually you're doing a brush on mold because you have something that's pretty three-dimensional and you want it to you want to make sure you get it on everywhere. Now, you might have noticed that some of the seams on the mask, this is a 3D printed mask that I got from the Armored Garage, Randy. I got his whole Starscream template for the Armored Garage, so I'm going to use that to make my armor and everything, but it comes with a 3D printable ready mask as well. So this is a 3D printed mask, and I printed it in a couple of pieces, and I just glued it together with super glue. You can see I didn't finish the print or anything. You can still see the print lines. And the seams I just filled in with clay instead of, painstakingly going through like I normally would and making sure that seam was all nice. The reason I filled it with clay is because I didn't want any of the silicone to get in that crack, but I also didn't want to spend a lot of time fixing this mask, because what's going to happen is I'm going to make this mold. And once this mold is all done, I'm actually gonna heat up some Monster Clay and dump it in the mold and slush cast a mask out of Monster Clay. And then I'm gonna take that Monster Clay mask and I'm gonna take some more Monster Clay and I'm gonna put it on my head cast. And so really this mold and this finished piece this finished mold and from this piece right here is really, really temporary. And so once I have that, the Monster Clay mask, Monster Clay obviously is much easier to smooth and finish than a 3D print. And since I'm gonna have to do some sculpting work and everything anyway, I'm gonna save myself a big step of finishing a 3D print, make this mold, cast it in Monster Clay, and then I can do any cleanup work on the actual clay mask, which will be really easy because for the most part, to get rid of all the print striations that are gonna be in this mold and in the clay mask, I'm just gonna hit it with a heat gun on low for a little bit and it'll just zap away all those print lines without me really even having to do anything. I'm just gonna heat it a little tiny bit, smooth it out, and then go from there. The end goal for this is that I will have a silicone prosthetic mask that will match my face exactly so that when I move my mouth, move my face, the mask will move. I'll be able to drink, maybe not eat, because you know, I want to retain that small little smirk face when I'm not moving, so the mouth hole isn't going to be too big. So I'll definitely be able to drink though. Probably won't be able to eat. And as you can see, I've gotten everything pretty good and covered with this first layer here. You can see it's a pretty thin coat. I'm just, as it's curing, I'm just trying to brush it up here and make sure. You'll see, you know, on the very high sharp points, you can see that there's gonna be, it'll be really thin right there, but that's why we do multiple coats. The next coat we do will actually have a little bit of this stuff in it. It's called Thyvex, and it makes it even thicker. So you put a little bit of that in, it's almost like, turns it into like, well, I mean, obviously it depends on how much you put in, how thick it gets, but you put some of that in so you have like a peanut butter consistency. And you kind of just plaster that on over this layer once this layer's done. This has about a 20-minute pot life. So once you mix it up, you got about 20 minutes to get it brushed on, which we're well under, obviously. And then you wait about an hour so that it, and about an hour at normal, ideal recommended temperatures, 72 degrees. Everything's 72 degrees, or 73 degrees, I mean. After about an hour, it'll be still lightly tacky, but it won't come off like when you touch it with your fingertip, and that's when you know that it is time for the next coat. I'm just gonna do a little bit more of trying to bring some of this up. Like anything, you know, viscous silicone, it wants to run down and self-level a little bit, so you gotta coax it a little. But I'm gonna just brush this up a little bit more. All right, there is our first coat. Okay, let's check it. Doesn't come off and it's tacky. So I'm gonna mix up batch number 2 here. And this batch we're gonna put a little bit of thickener in and a little bit of the Silk Pig tint so that we can better see our layers. Just mixing it over here. Pouring, you should say, haven't mixed yet. you can see, I put a little bit of blue tint in there, just a little tiny bit, but enough that when we mix this all together, we definitely do not get a pink color. Pinkish orange, I don't know what color that is. Salmon, maybe. Oh, the blue, it almost comes out gray. That's fine. Doesn't really matter what color it is, as long as we can tell the difference. We can clearly tell the difference here. Okay. Now, like I mentioned, we're gonna add the Thyvex. Now, you just need like a teeny bit. So we're gonna put 2 drops in there. You gotta be careful. It comes out a little fast. And you can see here in theory, as I mix this up, it gets even thicker than it was before. And that'll help it stick to the high points even better. As you can see, you know, the really high points are pretty thin, but see how thick that is. Oh yeah, looks like really old used chewing gum. I think I might do just another couple of drops. So it's nice and thick to paste it on there. Look at that. Oh yeah. That'll stick real well. So we're just gonna start gooping it on here, especially on all these high points that didn't really get as much rubber the first time through. And really too on this, the face details are kind of the most important part, especially since I'm gonna be, like I said, I'm gonna turn this into a clay mask, so like the bottom edges and things aren't gonna matter quite as much because those are all gonna get blended in with my face. So you can see this stays put a lot better than the first coat since it's so thick. Kind of just trowel it on there. And the high points are gonna be where I still am gonna, because it's such a sharp angle and they're so high and vertical, even with this thickened coat, those are gonna need a little bit of extra special attention. Make sure you get it everywhere too. Although I'm kind of doing thicker in the high points, I know it's gonna drip a little, but really just like anything else with a mold, you want it to be as even as possible. So the goal here is that everything should be covered in about the same thickness of silicone by the time you're done. You know, it'll self-level out a little bit as you can see too, so. It doesn't have to be, you know, perfectly smooth or anything. Get it all up in there, get some in the eye sockets. Get this side. Brush-on molds are definitely messier than a pour-on mold. I mean, I guess it depends on how messy you are with pour-on molds, but I know I'm not used to slathering material all around like this compared to most of what I make. there's these little undercuts in here, so I'm trying to get those too. Just make sure it goes all the way around. And I get all of the mask. The little catch at the bottom, I'm not too worried about that getting a second layer, because that's pretty thick already from where it settled in. Plus it doesn't really, that part won't really make much of a difference in the final mold in the way that I'm going to use it. Oh yeah. A little bit more on this edge here. Looking good. All right, everything is nice and covered. One thing when you are doing a mold like this, you know, just like with any other mold, usually you want registration keys for things. Usually when you're doing your last layer of the silicone, you'll put some silicone registration keys in the mold before you make your shell around it, so that way you know exactly how it lines up and keeps its shape and everything else. For this, I'm not going to do that for two reasons. One, again, this is going to be a junk mold, so I don't need it to be perfect, and you know, it doesn't matter if it keeps exactly the shape because I'm going to make that clay mask and conform it to my face anyway. But also, this mask in particular, as you can see, it basically has a really nice, the brow ridge, the nose, and the chin all make really nice registration keys. Once the shell is on this, there's no mistaking where the mask goes and how it sits in there because of those sharp protrusions. So really, the registration keys and where you need them and if you need them depend quite a lot on what you're actually, you know, the shape of the model and everything else. No matter how many layers of this I put on here, well, I mean, I guess if I put enough layers on here, it would smooth this out enough, but I'm not going to get anywhere close enough to smooth out and lose the definition, even through all the layers of silicone, of the chin and the nose and the brow ridge. So they'll act as more than sufficient registration keys, even if I was not using it as a junk mold and going to be doing it, those would probably be more than sufficient registration keys for this mold. There we go. It is all covered up. Oh, you can see how sticky it is compared to already, and we just poured it. All right, here we go. We'll do one more coat and then it will be time for the plastic shell. Okay, tacky doesn't come off, and time for the third coat. So I'm gonna mix this up. Gonna put a little bit of the red Silk Pig in it this time, just to change up the color a bit. Glub, 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 glub. Come on. This stuff is so thick that it's hard to pour it out and measure it out. Gotta kind of pour a glob in and let it settle. Make sure it doesn't pass the line. There we go. And then, oh, helps if I have a stir stick. Okay, so there we go, got that. Gonna put some Thivex in it again. All right, let's see what color this gets us. Ooh, that's pretty. The other nice thing about tinting anything, whether you're mixing resin or silicone, is that putting tint in it helps you get a better idea of if it's mixed properly, because if it's a uniform color, then you did a pretty good job of mixing it. Oh, look at that. Mmm, yummy. I want to chew on it. Oh, nice and thick, like gum. All right, here we go. Slap this stuff on here. Again, making sure to get a lot on the high points because it's going to sag down anyway. Yeah, this is a much nicer color to hide that ugly brown gray stuff anyway. You guys probably can't hear it, but I can hear the 3D printers upstairs printing away up there. It's very, very low in the background, but a sound I am all too familiar with. Kind of like frosting a cake or cupcakes. Smooth it around. All in there. The other nice thing is this hides the features enough that you can't really tell what it is anymore. Which means I can post a teaser pic. Just like this, and nobody will know what it is. After this goes on, then it's the long waiting game. Not that long, but 6 hours. 6 hours for this to fully cure, and then you can do the Plasti-Paste coat. And I have Plasti-Paste 2 because that's what Smooth On recommended. Never actually used Plasti-Paste 1 or Plasti-Paste 2, so that'll be new. This is new. This is the first time I'm doing a brush-on mold, actually. I've watched so many videos, thought about it so many times, and have just been afraid to do it. It's funny how often being afraid of trying something stops us from ever doing it. But I want to make this costume, and the only way forward was to finally do this.
Yeah!
That's Heather, being supportive.
Get it!
And you know, even if this is a giant failure, I will have learned something. So,
Yay, learning!
Don't let fear of failure stop you from trying things and learning new things. That is the biggest lesson that I will repeat over and over and over and over again to anybody who listens. It's okay to try things, it's okay to fail at them, because that is how you learn. Not a bit wasted. Just gonna smooth out around the edge here, just to make it look pretty. Make sure I got all those a couple little gaps back there. And there we go. Okay, we are ready to do our Plastipaste. Okay, we're all set. Our mold is cured. So we are going to use Plastipaste 2. So this stuff is 2-part. It's 2-to-1 by volume. The part A is a liquid. You're just gonna shake it pretty good, which I already did. Part B is this fibrous paste stuff. When you first open it, you wanna mix it really well. I already did that because it's boring just to watch me mix a jar of stuff by itself. So I already did that. And so the way that you wanna measure this, because this is so thick and fibrous, what you have to do is you have to kind of pack it into your measuring cup. So as best you can. So we're gonna pack this in here. Try to get a good measure. And then we'll measure out the part A in another cup. And then we'll have to put them into a third bigger cup to mix them together, which is totally fine. Think of it like cooking, where you have to make sure you actually get your dry measure into the measuring cup by packing it down. So you want to get all of those air pockets out of there so you can actually get an accurate representation of how much is in the cup. What I'm actually going to do is, because I know I want to do about 300 milliliters of this, so I'm going to pack it all in here really good, and then I'm going to just scrape some out of the top. So first I'm just going to pack this whole cup as full as I can. Which should get pretty close to what I need. All right, that's pretty dang good. So there's my cup of paste. So now I'm gonna just go down here to where 300 is. Oh, there's kind of an air bubble right there. Smash that in there some more. Okay, so I'm gonna go to where 300 is, and I'm just gonna go bloop. Smash that back down in there. Let's see. So that's 300, and that's packed in there pretty good. Stick that in there. Close this up. One thing with Plastipaste is that it does have a limited shelf life, especially once you open it. You want to use it up pretty quickly. I don't have anything else in mind that I need to use it for, but I'm going to figure something out real quick, because if I don't, it's going to go to waste. So 150 of this stuff. And then a bigger cup. That one has stuff in it. Uh-oh. Oh, here we go. This is a much bigger cup, but it's really the only thing I have. That's okay. So we are going to scoop all of this into here. Oh, or try to anyway. Oh. Man, this stuff is thick. Try and get every last bit out of here so the measurement stays correct. Okay, now I'm going to pour this in here. And this stuff has a pot life of about 10 minutes, and it takes about 90 minutes to cure. So once we get this all mixed together, I have about 10 minutes to slather it all on, which again, for this mold, should be pretty easy. Scrape this because I see there's some stuff on the stick that is not getting mixed in. Sometimes I'll scrape and then just kind of scoop it with the tip so I can stick it back down at the bottom and mix it in. Plastipaste, like most resins, is exothermic, so you can actually feel it as I'm mixing it up right now. My hand down here on the bottom, I can feel the it's starting to heat up, which means that it's pretty good in mix and it's already started its curing in a way a little bit. So here we go. We're gonna just slather this stuff on here. You know, just like with the silicone, you want to make sure you get a good, as even as possible coat on everything. Once this is cured, it's pretty hard. It's like rock hard, and it'll hold the shape of the mold when you pour whatever you're gonna pour into it. Now, again, because this is a junk mold and I'm gonna just pour clay into it and then mold it to my face, making sure that it's exactly right isn't a huge deal, because if it, you know, let's say it was a little misshapen, all the details of the mask are captured. So as long as I have the details, if the shape is a little off, as far as, you know, how flat or curved it is, it's not gonna be a big deal, because I gotta, once I have the clay mask, I'm gonna change its shape anyway to make it conform to my head. So not too big of a deal, but I think this is actually gonna be, I don't know, this is my first time doing it, so I'm not 100% certain, but I think it's looking pretty dang good. I've watched people do it, I've watched videos, I've been in a workshop while people are making them, so pretty sure I know what it's supposed to look like and that this is going to work out. Now I'm trying to get, you might have seen, I'm trying to get all the way down to this little channel that I created with the clay. The channel originally is just to catch the silicone so that if it was too runny or whatever, it doesn't run all over the table and whatnot. But now, because I have enough plastic paste in here, I'm kind of filling it in a little bit, and what that'll do is it'll make a nice lip for me to actually hold it by while I am slush casting it. Basically a little handle that goes around the whole outside of the mold. Just get those, again, those high spots. I don't want to be covered by anything. Almost done. I'm just gonna take some of this and get in here. And you know, you might have also noticed, just like with any of these chemicals, always wear gloves. The Plastipaste and the silicone don't require a respirator in a well-ventilated area. I'm in the workshop, which is pretty big. It's basically a 2-car garage, so there's lots of space in here. It's pretty well ventilated, so I'm not too worried about that at the moment. But I do try to wear my respirator whenever I can in the shop, even if I'm not necessarily doing anything. We just cleaned the shop after we finished all of our latest builds and stuff, so it's not too dirty in here. But just because there's always some sort of fumes and painting and sanding and things going on and dust in the air, I try to wear it most of the time when I'm in here anyway. Just not wearing it today. Not that you would have known that because you can't see my face, but just thought I would be honest about it. I'm just messing around now, smoothing it out, even though it doesn't matter. I just want it to look pretty when it's all done. And I don't know if you can tell on the video, but I can definitely tell just by touching it and pushing this around that it's starting to cure, and it's definitely thicker than when I first started. So that means I should probably stop playing with it here, because it's gonna do weird things if I'm playing with it while it's getting hard. Cool. We'll call that good. There we go. Okay, here we go, moment of truth. Nice hard shell. That's what we want. Okay. Well, the whole mask came off. That's fine. That's okay. Let's really hope this works, because I don't want to have to do this all over again. Looks like the clay held up pretty good and kept everything in there. Got a little tiny bit of seepage in the eye sockets, but that's okay, because look. Rip. Rip. All gone. Okay. Now, let's see if we can get this sucker out of here. Going around and loosening all the edges first. The one thing with this, any of these hard shell things, however you make them, because it's basically hard and you have this nice thin little layer all around, it's really jaggedy and sharp. So just doing what I just did, I scratched myself a few times on my hands. Trying to get all the junk material in there. Okay, get this out of the way. Okay, let's try and get this guy out of here. I'm always more gentle with things than I probably need to be because I'm worried about breaking things or messing it up and having to start over. Ooh, nice cracking sound. Oh, well, that's, like I said, I did a really quick rush job on sticking that together. And it shows. That's okay, again, as long as everything else works out, it doesn't really matter that that is broken now because I don't need it anymore. Come on. Come on. Remember how I mentioned the brow ridge and the nose and the chin make really good registration keys? Yeah, that's the problem. Oh, here it comes. There you go, see? There's my registration keys. The hole fits right in there, and then this should just... Bloop. There we go. There's a Starscream face. So one thing I always do after I get a new mold out is I just basically do a quick junk cast with some resin just to kind of clean everything out. So I'm just going to mix up a little bit of resin, slush it around in there. Plus it's a good opportunity to see what the mold results will look like. And you know, then I'll have a cool little throwaway resin mask of Starscream 2 on top of it. So all in all, not a bad deal. That'll be a really thin mask because I'm just doing a really thin slush cast. That's really all I need. This is BJB Enterprises TC808 Jet Black. It's pretty much, in my experience, it's pretty similar to Onyx. It's, as you can see, it's jet black. So it's really dark, pre-pigmented, and it comes out very, very black. And it cures pretty quickly too, which is nice, especially since I'm gonna be slushing this around. I don't wanna stand here for 30 minutes or anything. I'll just mix this up, make sure it's mixed really well. As you can see, I forgot my gloves because I'm excited about doing this. Don't do that. Don't be like me and forget your gloves. Always make sure you wear your gloves when you're mixing chemicals of any sort, please. All right, set that down over there. I'm gonna dump that in the nose, because why not? Doesn't matter. Let's get it all, make sure we got it all. Okay. Then we're just gonna slush that around in there. Should we get everywhere? Especially when something's clayed up, I like to do a junk test too, because it'll clean off any little bits of clay that might be left in there, or anything else really. Just trying to force it to get in all the places that it hasn't yet before it kicks. Looks like maybe that wasn't enough to do a full slush, but that's okay. Luckily, this is just junk. I use that word a lot when it comes to molding and casting. Oh, so close, so close, so close to getting everything covered. Oh, there was a bunch down hiding in the chin. Oh, I think I managed to get everything covered before it kicked. Oh, there's a little bit over here in this eye that didn't get cut anything. Come on, come on, come on. Right up here, right up here. Come on, get in there. Get in there. Anybody? Anybody? Like I said, it's just a little bit of resin. I know it's definitely not gonna be a very sturdy cast. It's not gonna be usable for anything really, but it will definitely show me how well this came out. And there we go, got it all. Whew, good thing I scraped that. We'll see what that looks like later. All right, let's see. Look at that. Pretty good. There's some thin spots, but that was because there wasn't very much resin, but other than that, looks pretty darn perfect. Sweet.